Hello, this is April Sheehan Corkery from the Roots Party of Ireland, and welcome to my live about sins and secrets, human suffering and exploitation in Ireland. Now, Irish Kai 98 will be in the comments. She was supposed to appear on video with me. However, she has a cold or flu type thing, and she's finding it difficult to speak. So she'll be chiming in the comments. So please read the comments and watch out for Kai's what say within the comments, because she has been the major driving force behind bringing all of this to light on here on TikTok, from kind of a more we'll say left wing standpoint. And as well as that, I would like to give a big shout out to, you might know her from TikTok as Ginger Knickers, Elaine Gray. She she kind of suggested to me that I should look into and do a live on human trafficking within Ireland. So please, I won't say enjoy. It's not a subject that anyone will enjoy, but please have a look at the live and put your feedback into the comments. Now, first of all, I would like to go through some facts and figures with regards to human trafficking and otherwise exploitation within Ireland. Second now. I'll invite Roger because I just see him popped up there. Cian, if you want to come up, you might request. So I'm just going to go through the facts and figures first and foremost before we start any, we'll say, discussion on the issue. Now, according to the Irish Human Rights and Equality Commission report in September 2023, trafficking for sexual exploitation is the most common form at 55%. Followed by labour trafficking at 38% and trafficking for criminal activity at 6%. There was a single case reported of trafficking for organs, mirroring the trend of novel forms of trafficking picking up or becoming a feature within the EU. 67% of the trafficking victims were women and 33% were men. Recommendations were made in the report to take trafficking victims out of direct provision and to stop housing them in direct provision, along with indirect provision. That it is IPAS's duty to provide services to all victims of trafficking. The state should relieve IPAS of that duty. That a national strategy on technology and human trafficking be developed. Extensive education targeting young people to prevent the risk of grooming and to discourage young people from becoming buyers. That pornography, because I can't say the word on TikTok, and escort, and I don't mean Ford's, websites be heavily monitored and regulated to eliminate the risk of trafficking and human rights abuses. That the state opts into the EU Employer Sanctions Directive and seasonal work permits be either brought into line with EU standards or scrapped. Now, this is one major issue actually is that we are not opted into the Employer Sanctions Directive. A standalone offence is introduced to make slavery, servitude or forced compulsory labour illegal, because technically there is no law against it in Ireland so long... Oh, I see Cian is on. 1 second now, I'll just accept Cian. There is no standalone offence with regards to, we'll say, slavery and servitude, forced compulsory labour. A case has to fulfil other offences before such time as it can actually be prosecuted, which is a major blow to dealing with these kind of crimes. That the state, Gardaí and TUSLA collect reliable and uniform data on the exploitation of children, as has been recommended by the UN Special Rapporteur on the sale and SA exploitation of children. Human trafficking is included in the Child First guidelines. Now, and to that, the Council of Europe Convention Against Trafficking noted no change in legislation since 2017, and that Ireland continues to be primarily a country of destination for trafficking. The number of presumed victims: 2017 103, 2018 64, 2019 42, 2020 38, 2021 44. 46% of presumed victims come from Africa, primarily Nigeria, and 36% from the former EEA. From the EEA. I don't know, it would mean, kind of technically that really means the former Eastern Bloc, but, I kind of read it wrong, it was from the EEA. And 11% from Asia. This is mostly per Social Justice Ireland. According to the Immigrant Council of Ireland, 90% of, put out in the street to walk them, we will have to try and avoid community standards here, people are migrant women and girls. Per the Law Society reporting on the second IHREC report, 5 children were trafficked here for SA exploitation in 2022. Trafficking for labour exploitation affects more men, 60%. Some trafficking of Irish nationals has also been reported, of which 8% were children. The worst offending industries were nail, hair and beauty salons, agriculture and hospitality, fishing and domestic work, with hospitality accounting for around half all by itself. And what's interesting about that one specifically is the fact that hospitality is who has mostly benefited from the the crisis we have of international protection. And there is some very, very wealthy people, mostly involved with the main parties, who are in hospitality throughout the country. And, the fact that they are, like we'll say, the primary destination for labour exploitation within Ireland, it stands out a nice bit. The US State Department has criticised us for not prosecuting labour traffickers and very few sexual traffickers. They have also criticised us for convicting no one, in spite of having formally identified over 500 trafficking victims since trafficking legislation came in 2017. Our track record on human trafficking was so chronically deficient, it has been highlighted in a late 2023 report to the United Nations. On an EU level, Frontex is investigating the involvement of front organisations in smuggling cases, alongside genuine charities rescuing people from the Mediterranean and other points of entry. There's up to 1,000 cases in that respect. There is also currently a Garda probe into allegations that TUSLA put vulnerable children into unregulated emergency accommodation with fabricated pre-employment staff screenings as per the Irish Times, with Ideal Care Services at the centre. They are a major care provider for TUSLA, making around $4.5 million per year off of TUSLA. There were 8 unaccompanied children that went missing in 2020, and only 1 of them was recovered. 22 children went missing in January this year alone. In total, 27 companies are contracted to TUSLA for the provision of residential care. TUSLA spent $14 million placing children in unregulated emergency accommodation. 12%, or 733 children, were placed in private care in November 2020, as per the Irish Examiner. If 450 children are in residential care, between 250 and 300 of them are in private provision. This is also per the Irish Examiner. We spend almost $200 million per year on residential care, and 87% of this cost is associated with private provision. The average weekly cost per child is at $7,511 in 2019. There has been 1,500 total reports of children going missing from state care since 2018. So, I see Kai there saying they spent a lot more than 14 million over the last few years. 14 million was the figure for Ideal Care. Yes, actually you're right there. Overall, we've spent about 200 million, with regards to residential care, of which 87% of this costs associated with private provision. Now I'm just going to go back a little bit now and see did Kai say anything else while I was reading that out. Goes on and how little is convicted. Yes, now there is a major issue with the lack of conviction with regards to human trafficking. It's an endemic problem in both this country, Europe, and the world overall. And we are probably one of the worst offenders for non-conviction with regards to human trafficking. And, it's not that we're an island. It should not be this difficult to find and convict human traffickers. But this is kind of the situation that we have. Now, I'd like to say, lads, Cian and Roger, do you have anything that you would like to say on this issue right this moment? No, the lads have nothing to say as of yet. And Kai is saying, for 7 years we had 0 convictions for it from 2013 to 2020, but hundreds of cases in that time, yeah. The US State Department reports over 500 cases from 2017 up until, I think, was it 22 alone, not even including the period for 2013. I'd say if you added it all together, you wouldn't be far away from up in 1,000. And Michael Durden in the comments saying Judge Nolan deserves a mention, but the mainstream media wouldn't dare. Yeah, he does deserve a mention. There's been a huge amount of cases brought before him for exploitation of women and children, and I have no idea how he still maintains his position as a judge. Now, I would like to talk a little bit about, first of all, I suppose one handy place to start is labour exploitation, because some of the main issues is, for example, lack of unionisation, and I am very much aware of, there's several cases I'm aware of at the moment whereby an awful lot could be solved simply by if we actually had Zach is saying, I couldn't read the title. Is this anything to do with the mother? We will be tying it back to the mother and baby homes and our overall bad track record with regards to treatment of vulnerable people, and the fact that there is already, this is a legacy of it. Because part of the problem here is that the government, it's difficult to deal with people who are, suffering for any reason, be it children who are from less than ideal backgrounds, children who are coming here from other places, they don't want to deal with it, and they haven't learned their lesson from what happened with the church, not to outsource it. Because at the moment now, as it said here, as I mentioned here, 87% of of the costs related to residential care are going on private provision, and that if there's 450 children in residential care, between 250 and 300 of them will be in private provision. So we haven't stopped farming out the care of children and the care of vulnerable people to people who have less than pure motives, either be it purely profit driven or the motives that the church had in many cases of overall broader exploitation as well as profit driven. So we've a serious issue here, and this is a legacy issue, because we do, as a country, do not treat struggling mothers well, or struggling parents in general. We do not treat them well. And there is a thing, essentially where they did a study a long while ago on, we'll say, the treatment of, maternal instinct under stress. And what they found was that there was a much heightened level of abuse towards young in, for example, rat studies. If they removed the bedding and created a stressful situation for the rats, they would almost universally turn abusive towards their young. So what they found is on a very, very basic level that in the majority of animals, stress, as in, lack of security, lack of resource security, causes abuse within, the unit, even on an instinctual level, even within animals. So one of the major issues, in my opinion, is the lack of support and the lack of, we'll say, reasonable conditions that people who are single parents have to rear their children with. This is absolutely an economic issue. This is absolutely a state issue. And like you have this situation whereby, for example, you have mothers who are from, more disadvantaged backgrounds, or you have mothers who are coming from terrible situations abroad, or you have, anything of, in between that and, the average person, whereby people are put under immense stress. And, okay, people do need to be, the children do need to be taken in situations like that, where they are being abused. But what we are doing with them is we're putting them in situations that wouldn't pass if a parent was doing it. Like, how are children going missing? Like, how does, these people who are supposed to be an authority over less than perfect parents, how are they letting so many children disappear? How are they let away with letting so many children disappear? Because an awful lot of these children that are taken from their original parents are actually ending up in worse situations when they enter state care or foster care. Like, for example, the 14-year-old that was found in a brothel and had been there for 12 months. And I mean, there's many cases of children ending up in very, very bad situations with regards to from once they enter state care. We had it when the church were essentially selling kids, and we have it now. And Kyle's just saying missing kids has always been a huge thing with Tusla, and many end up in bad places. And this is absolutely true. Now, there are people who might be going on with, there's some grand, we'll say, conspiracy whereby, Tusla is selling our kids or what have you. It is much more likely to be just absolute, kind of a combination of, it's the whole neoliberal thing of reduced funding so that a service can be privatized. Then, and then what you call it, you make a good argument for privatization, and like it's a kind of a self-fulfilling cycle, because then you end up with a terrible, service, and like everyone is saying, oh yeah, but sure, it was even worse when the state was running it. And I mean, this is just a situation that we have. Privatization is the biggest enemy to actual provision of services that we've ever had. Neoliberalism is the biggest enemy. And what are all of the main, what are all the main parties? They're all, every single one of them is neoliberal. No. Second outlet, I want to invite on Derek if he's there. I think I saw him pop in.
I see that comment.
I
I
think
see that
someone's
comment
in
there
there.
saying someone went missing from Tusla in 2017.
Uh, Andrea, if you would like to come on, please request. I'd love to hear from you, but I'm not going to push you if you don't want to come on. It's obviously a very, these are people's personal stories, so we'll be very sensitive about it. But if you don't want to come on, there's no problem. And so you should speak directly to children who have actually gone missing in care, such as myself or someone. Now, we did genuinely try to get people. We did genuinely trying to get people on who had direct experience with this situation, and we had we had obviously, like, I mean, an awful lot of people have trauma and they don't want to talk about it publicly, obviously, and an awful lot of people, people are entitled to their privacy, so we're not going to kind of push anyone who don't want to openly share their story. But we have tried to get that side of it before the live. It's just it kind of wasn't happening. And Beverly Mack is saying the hiring embargo on Tusla, overworked social workers and poor accountability of social workers. And that is absolutely an awful lot of the issue. Now, Ellen Cassidy is asking me, would I mind defining neoliberalism? Well, now, we're not going to get derailed off of this. If I have a bit of time later on, I will. Or if you want to comment on some one of my videos, I'll do a video for you explaining neoliberalism. And Andrea here is saying a lot of it is wanting to stay loyal to their families while trying to settle into a new family or residential. Now, what was I going to say, Jordan, do you want to say anything on this, because you're actually studying social care?
Uh, you more or less covered it. Like massive lack of staff and typically undertrained staff for those kind of situations are two of the major problems. Like typically, if say they don't come back for a curfew, they will be declared missing. But afterwards, if they do end up returning, that is lifted. So when you're seeing the statistics of say 99 of them going missing, if that's up for more than say 24 hours, they are actually missing. So I seen some people trying to argue that it's the overall report, but it's not. Like if you're able to find it, saying that they're missing, they are officially missing.
Hmm.
Sorry, I just want to say that I see a lot of people trying to argue that in some of the comment sections for some reason.
Argue which now? Sorry.
I see a lot of people trying to argue the statistics of right. Okay, so they in residential, say for example, they have a curfew of say 11 o'clock,
Hmm.
and if they don't come back by 11 o'clock, they're legally obligated to report them as missing. But if they say come back that night or the night after, whatever, that is lifted.
Hmm.
So they're no longer counted as missing. So when you're seeing statistics of that level of missing children, they are like officially missing.
Yeah.
It's not a case of them just not coming back for a day.
Hmm.
Sorry, I see a lot of people trying to complain about that in comment sections.
Well, you see, I think a lot of it comes down to the just world fallacy because an awful lot of people don't like to think that we're living in that. It's very hard for them to think of the country in that terms, and it's very hard for them to think of these
Yeah.
things. I mean, they have to kind of undercut it, like people going through their daily life, particularly parents. It is absolutely terrifying for them the prospect of that kind of thing going on, and I mean it's
Mm.
completely understandable. And as well as that, there has been an awful lot of kind of narratives pushed that this is the case. That these, that oh, if they're gone missing for a couple of hours, that that they're still down as the missing. But
Yeah.
like, I mean, like an awful lot of that is, it's partially like it's not suiting the government that this is happening. That well, they don't seem to care the fact that it's happening. So in some respects, some members of government, but they don't like the fact that this is coming, this is being brought out in the open. Now,
I wouldn't even. I'd go further than that. Like,
mm,
I wouldn't say that it doesn't seem. They do not care. It is not a thing of they don't seem to care. Like, it's very obvious they do not care. It's been brought up many, many times to them just in the past year alone.
mm,
They have no interest in solving this problem,
no,
like whatsoever. Like, I constantly see this thing of saying there's a difference if it's immigrant children or if they're Irish children. It does not matter. Both statistics are both very, very high. And it shouldn't matter at all if they're an immigrant or not. They're still a missing child at the end of the day. And they have no interest at all in fixing the problem.
mm,
Like nothing has been done about this.
no, nothing at all. And like I mean, it's like look, they didn't want to do anything about the mother and baby homes. They didn't want to do anything about the the what you call them, what you call them schools. I can't think of them. Do you know the ones like Little Frack and that, and yeah, the industrial
What?
schools. They didn't
Yeah,
want to do anything about the industrial schools. They didn't want to do anything about any of this. And I mean, they even went to the level of, sealing the documents regarding that. So,
yeah.
wanting to do something about this, which is currently happening to them, absolutely no chance in the world. And like the story that's given is, of course, like that, like for example, that what you call that all care, so what that services what was the name of them again? I keep forgetting the name of them. Where was I now? Um,
You good?
Ideal Care Services. Like for example, like
Right.
Ideal Care Services are going to get you know, a kick over it. But like I mean, at the end of the day, who allowed them to do this? It's the same as like
Yeah.
for example, okay, the church was to blame for what happened to those children, but the church wasn't only to blame. The state placed those children in the church's care. And the church and like the state needs to answer for this situation. Oh, I'll just catch up a small little bit here on comments because there's a few good things that's come into the comments while I've been talking. If you want to talk away there,
I see this Mike lad is the perfect example of burying your head in the sand and pretending things aren't bad.
Kai is saying I'll speak
Sis-
to a few people, April. I know a few survivors of care who might be okay to speak. If you know anyone who would like to have their
Yeah,
story shared, we have no issue at all giving them airtime. There's a high, yeah, and Andrea's saying another one of the factors is, and it's hard to trust staff when there's high overturn, and that's fair enough.
yeah,
And Kai is replying to her saying that, and that's a major problem with the privatization of it. And Andrea says sometimes I was reported missing when I wasn't actually missing. They knew where I
mm,
was. And Kai was saying that she knows of a girl. Or no, sorry, they. Sorry, apologies now for misgendering you, Kai. Kai was saying that they know of a girl who has been missing now for weeks. Gardaí found her a few times and let her go. And what else do I know? And Kai is also saying that's the girl they had the videos about. She's finally safe now, but was missing for weeks.
yeah.
And I think some strange person there was asking, oh, our life has been for misinformation, lads. Isn't that interesting?
Sorry.
Yeah. No, we'll drive on regardless.
I wonder is that Simon in the comments?
Yeah. 1 second, I'll just see can I peel that. Yeah, I'll try to peel that restriction. Yeah, misinformation. My like you know, like I almost wish that this was a misinformation, but
Be
unfortunately,
happier about it, all right.
Why would we make up something like this?
unfortunately, and what I find hilarious is every single thing I said there I cited. Where was I now?
Yeah, I see that comment. The most of the kids go missing, return within an hour. That is 100% true. But the issue with that is statistically those ones aren't released. Like those stats aren't the ones that are really and truly released.
No,
So when you're seeing stats about this, it isn't. They aren't the ones they're talking about. Andrea requested to join, by the way.
oh yeah, I'll let Andrea know. We'll see what Andrea has to say. Lovely. And I see who reported us for misinformation. Mike, I won't repeat his username. So,
Hi
see,
guys, I don't know if you can hear me. It's like my first time ever like joining a live, so
We can hear you.
but yeah, no, I just said like I'd come on and share like my story for a second. So I went missing a couple of times with Tusla. I was in like a long-term foster placement and I went missing a couple of times between like 2017 and 18. I was like 14, 15 at the time, whatever. And like the first time I went missing, like it was literally like on my own accord. Like I literally just stayed out late, didn't come home. Teenage shit, you get me, like staying out at a party, blah blah blah. Um, After that then it just got so blown out of proportion. Like I ended up having to go to like emergency respite. It was like really like like I hate to say the term normal, but like most teenagers that like are living at home with their parents, like they literally just like go home, they might get grounded. But me, I got sent to emergency respite and stuff like that. So after that, that really like impacted my mental health and stuff like that. And then I remember like around that time, like I really needed like mental health support. And like because of like the overturn of Tulsa staff, like I think I'd gone to like 3 social workers in 1 year. Like they just weren't like listening to the fact that I needed like, you know, supports. And I ended up like going missing a couple more times, but then it got to the point where they put me on like a curfew. I think like Roots was talking about that, or someone in the live was talking about that, and like my curfew was like 11 p.m. But my curfew stated that even if I said like where I was, even if I said where I was still reported missing. So even if I texted my carer saying, "Hi, I'm at this my friend's house Saturday night. I'm staying out till whatever time, or I'm having a sleepover," I wasn't allowed sleepovers because I'm a child in care, first of all, and second of all, I was still reported missing. So I think like overall, I had like 5 missing cases. Like the overturn of staff is actually crazy, especially when you are in care. Like, you rely on your social worker for everything, and when you don't have a social worker, and when you're not getting the supports quickly enough, like, I speak a lot about how to, so I like to use a trauma-led approach. They're not going to support you unless it is an emergency, like an emergency. Like, they nearly put like a hierarchy of how quickly they're going to support you, if that makes sense. So like, if instead of like giving you like ongoing support, like all the time, they're going to wait till things get like really really bad to then like support you, if that makes sense. Like, I'm sick of the trauma-led approach. Like, that's why I think there is a lot of kids missing in care. And then you have like the other factor too of like kids just wanting to stay loyal to their families, or wanting to stay loyal to their families, or like not wanting to, like, I don't know, like there's just a load of like factors to it though. Like, I don't know, like there is like a hierarchy of, yeah, like Kai, like you're right, like there is like a hierarchy of like, you know, like, because obviously you might have kids that have like special needs, or you might have kids that like are having like a, you know, a placement breakdown or whatever, and like they're gonna get more supports than you. Like, it's actually crazy. But like, sorry for rambling on there. I just said
Not
I'd give some
rambling at all.
context.
Yeah, not rambling. Agree with everything you said, and you put it
But
very
like, yeah, there just isn't enough social workers. Like, there really isn't. And I know, like, I've had good social workers in the past. Like, I actually have had good social workers in the past. But the problem is they get burnt out too quickly. The good ones, I can tell from the minute I meet them. I'm in aftercare now. I still see it in the aftercare system that like there is like they get burnt out really quickly. Like, they get just burnt down so quickly. And then you have really good carers. I had really good carers. Like I was still with like my carers now, even past 18, when the money stopped, and like they don't foster any more kids anymore because like they just do not get the supports that they need. Like, Ireland is so big on parental rights, and that is a good thing. I think parental rights are super important. But when you, like me, I never lived with my natural parents. So how come someone that I never lived with had more rights and more say over me than my foster carers did, who raised me?
yeah.
And person-centered planning, exactly, like it does need to be implemented. And the, like, when you're dealing with kids in care, you're dealing with kids that are in care for a reason. They're in care because of trauma, they're in care because of possibly abuse, because possibly addiction, stuff like that. And like, there is a higher number of children in care with disability than any other group in Ireland too. So you have like more behavioural issues, mental health issues, and a lot of that isn't taken into consideration when you're dealing with kids in care, or you're supporting. Instead of looking at, okay, this child is missing in care, they've after running away from a residential or from a carer, even if it's more for more than a few days. Instead of looking at, this is a child missing in care, you should be looking at why. What has happened? Has there been any changes in their life recently? Do you know, who were they talking to? Phones is a big issue too. Like, phones is a really big issue. Like, I wasn't allowed a phone in care till I was about 13 years old, and I'm actually happy about that. It definitely kept me safe.
Well, I mean, unfortunately, this is the case because overall, like the spending that we have on, for example, child mental health services in general, like child mental health services, and like Kean actually spoke in front of us all about child mental health services. Like, I mean, the situation we have with that is unbelievable, even for people with a huge amount of family support, let alone someone who doesn't have family support.
Hmm. Like, I always speak a lot about like intergenerational trauma, and about like how children in care, like, they might have huge underlying issues, and they may not even know what they are themselves. So how are they meant to communicate to a social worker or a carer like what they need? I used to always get asked what I needed when I was in care, and I never fucking knew. Like, I never knew what supports I needed until I really needed them. But this is why social workers need to be trained on like how to deal with like situations like that. You get me? Like, they just don't have the training. And just, as I said, the main thing when I look back at my care experience is, why was there such a trauma-led approach, like an emergency approach, a crisis-led approach? Like, it needs to be supports all the way through. Like, I remember I screamed at my social worker for mental health supports, and there just wasn't any. It wasn't their fault necessarily, but there just wasn't any support. So then it just got too late. There was more trouble for me then, and then by the time they stepped in, there was already a curfew on me. Half the time I wasn't even missing. I told them where I was, but you know, protocol, they had to call the Gardaí. Like, social workers should come from more diverse backgrounds. I completely agree. Like, we should have social workers from traveller backgrounds. We should have social workers from migrant backgrounds, 100%. But they need to be trained in an Irish context, though. because like the care system is different in every different country. If you look at even the languages, I know in Ireland, if you call seeing your family, that's called an access visit. In the UK, that's called contact. For example, like the language is different being used in different countries as well. So
And I mean, as well as that, like, I mean, it's very hard for them to attract enough people. Like, I mean, they're doing a huge amount of work. They're basically fixing all of the problems from within our system, and they're being paid very little for it. Like,
oh yeah,
compared
and like
to
if you think about it, like we all know the saying, it takes a village to raise a child. It shouldn't be down to one person to focus on a child in care. It needs to be, I speak about this all the time, it needs to be the teacher, it needs to be the multidisciplinary team, the GP even. The GP needs to step in sometimes too. I know GP is kind of in shambles at the moment, the waiting lists are insane, but your GP, your social worker, your social care worker, the youth worker, the carer, the residential key worker, whoever that may be, it takes loads of different people to focus on a child in care. I noticed when I look back at maybe 17, 16, all those people started working together and actually coming together as a team. That's when things started going good for me. The pressure should not just be on one person. Even carers, like they're completely underpaid for what they do.
yeah,
And like we have so many carers leaving, and I think it's from the lack of recognition. Like as I said, parental rights are so important. Like I'm not saying get rid of parental rights, but I'm saying it should go by each individual situation. How come my own mother, who I barely lived with throughout my life, had more rights about me and sing about me than somebody who raised me my entire life? Like it's kind of shocking for me.
That's a really valid point. And I think if you look at the UK system, where termination of birth parent rights occurs much earlier, I mean, it just doesn't happen over here. Whereas in the UK, they go, you've been given X amount of chances with this child, and you're fecking up each time. So now we're going to terminate rights and give this child a chance. Um, and I think that is a big part of it over here. They just don't do it. And so these parents who are not in a position, who really should have no right of say, when after 14, 15 years should have no right of say, are still dictating what does and doesn't happen to a child. Very unfair.
well, I mean, with that said, there does need to be a certain amount of balance, because you do have cases in the
Mm-hmm.
UK, for example, where someone who is doing a not too bad job at all, but might be, for example, slightly intellectually disabled or something, is having their children taken off them when all they really need is support. But I
I
do,
completely agree.
Yeah,
It should go by each individual situation
yeah.
and how you can look at supporting a family as a whole. And I know in Scotland in particular, they do a lot around like keeping families together, reuniting families, stuff like that. In Ireland, like that's not really done as much. Like I know people that went back to their families at 18 and they just went like completely downhill. Like that shouldn't be okay. Shouldn't be
And
allowed.
And in the UK, they encourage, like, by actually, instead of just having foster parents all the way through, they encourage adoption,
They
if
do.
that's what's there. And they still maintain the foster parent payments, but they're adoption payments. So in other words, they recognise the fact the child is going to have high needs. They're going to have to be huge money put into helping them, whether it's through psychology or OT or all the services they need. But they supply for that. And whereas over here they go, you adopt them, it's on your own bat, that's it, you have them, that's it, you take it on. Whereas in the UK they don't. They say you adopt them and we'll support you the whole way through. And it
Yeah.
can be an open adoption where they can still see their birth parents.
Like I wish that was implemented more here, because
Yeah.
I think that's the reason why a lot of children aren't adopted in Ireland. And I don't think it's about the money just that necessarily. I think it's about too is that if it's we know that some children in care like do go down a path of entering the juvenile justice system, etc. And like if a child in care does go down that road, once they're adopted, all that responsibility goes back to the now parents. And also, as I said, parental rights, they can refuse that adoption in Ireland. Like my mother would never have allowed for me or my sister to have been adopted, despite us living with the same foster care for 18 years, basically,
Yeah.
like literally nearly the whole way through.
Yeah, and I mean, like, to be given the stability at a younger age, even if it's through an open adoption, that the birth parents still have access, absolutely. But, that the child is put first. What we do in Ireland, we put the parents and the family first. We don't put the child first. and we actually should put the child first. I think that's a huge part. And the reason a lot of parents don't want to adopt through foster over here is you lose access to any services that you might be getting.
Yeah, and
You
like
then have
I've
no
actually
chance of helping the child.
like now looking back, I'm happy that I wasn't adopted because I wasn't adopted, I got access to aftercare support, which
Yeah.
means I got given an aftercare worker, I got given an aftercare payment, I was more financially supported through college. Like I have more support now than if I was to be adopted. I mean, fair enough. If I was adopted, like I technically have parents on paper. According to the government, I don't have parents, which is kind of like not great for the owl identity or belonging.
Huge kick in the
um,
teeth.
it is a huge kick in the teeth because like I see like these people as my family, like my foster brothers are my brothers, like they gave up a room for me as a baby, like they did everything for
Yeah.
me. But at the same time, I did get access to aftercare supports, which my peers that were adopted never got.
And again, that goes back to the Irish government's attitude to it is, if we can get them adopted, they're off our books, they're gone, isn't it great? We can wash our hands of them. Instead of
and
saying, how else can we support them?
and they make it so hard to go through the adoptive system. Like I know people that are trying to adopt foster kids at the moment that, you know, like they make it so hard. Like they don't make adoption like easy
No.
for people whatsoever. Um yeah, like as I said, like Patricia, I read your comment there, like it really goes by each individual situation. I don't like talking about care as like a one size fits all, and like that's what I'm sick of even Ireland doing. They talk about it as if it's a one size fits all. They don't talk about the different types of care, the different types of people in care. It's always a one size fits all rather than going by individual situations. Like I remember when they, even now, like I remember when I was a child, TUSLA wasn't TUSLA. It was the HSE. The HSE did it all. And when the HSE became, they created TUSLA, whatever. Like that was meant to be just focused on like kids in care, and now they do way more. They do like early years regulatory. They do so much more than just care now, which like is away from the original purpose of TUSLA. But like as well as that, it's like if you want something from TUSLA or from your social worker or like mental health supports, who does it fall back on, the HSE or TUSLA? Because in my opinion, they blame each other. They want to. You get me?
There's an enormous amount of book passing going on, and it has to stop. Like I mean, there's huge there's people with huge issues, and I mean as well as that, like even a good portion of this is also, for example, the provision of addiction services, because an awful lot of parents who are whose kids end up in these situations are addicted to substances. So I mean, if we can't, like every addict that wakes up tomorrow morning decides that, oh, I've hit rock bottom, I need help. Only one of 10 can actually access any sort of service.
Yeah.
So I mean, it really takes a kind of, we'll say, a hybrid, we'll say, holistic overall approach to problems within our society as well as problems within TUSLA and our other departments.
Mm-hmm.
But I
Like
would,
another huge issue too is like that people never speak about when they talk about care is the fact that Ireland has some of the highest numbers in the world of fetal alcohol syndrome in children, and the majority of those children are in the care system. But yet, fetal alcohol syndrome isn't recognised as a disability in Ireland. It's not recognised as a disability. It's more common in Ireland than autism and ADHD combined, and it's misdiagnosed or undiagnosed because most of them children are in care. So you're saying a lot of kids are being put into care for alcohol and addiction issues, but yet they're not looking at the fact that this child could have intellectual disability or fetal alcohol syndrome,
absolutely. Now I
which
would
is shocking.
I would just like to. There's a good few comments building up, so I'd like to answer a few of them, and we can continue then. Because Michael Durden asked a very good question. He asked, "What is an industrial school?" And an awful lot of people here are too young to remember the whole inquest and that with regards to industrial schools. What they essentially were was they were supposed to teach kids trades. Don't ask me why they were putting small kids into trades classes, but essentially what they became was state-sanctioned, church-administrated child labour camps with every kind of abuse you could possibly think of. Um, Now, what you call it? Kai was saying if they don't have details or if they age out or they remove the missing appeal, and that is a very good point. There's an awful lot of people who have aged out, or if they don't have the full details, they're still missing, but they're not being reported as missing. And this certain person who appears to have caused us to be reported for misinformation, I can't actually his name is actually so bad. I can't say it and be within community standards. He says the government has already paid compensation to all these groups. The government has made judgments that they should be paid, but very few have actually been paid. And he's the same person also asking, are you a Catholic? I actually am a very devout Catholic, but I do not support the church. I do not support the church at all in what they've done in this country. And unfortunately, we don't have a vote in the church.
I also just want to like chime in for 1 second. As someone that like has spent like my entire life in care, it makes me so uncomfortable when people bring in the church and mother and baby homes into this conversation, because where we are now with state care is completely different to how it was. And like, of course it matters because you may have parents that were in mother and baby homes, like there's that intergenerational trauma perspective. But like my experience versus someone who's been in mother and baby home care by the church is completely different to HSE and state care. So that makes me so uncomfortable. I just wanted to put that out there when I speak about that, because
I would agree. Look, obviously the experience is completely different, but it is still part of the government track record of trying to wash their hands of caring for the vulnerable in society, either on church or on private actors now at this stage in a lot of cases. And I'm just seeing, I say, Painface Warrior saying that she's a accountant band and he will join using a different one. Now, if you are there, Painface, and if you wanted to join, I have missed your request, so you might request again. And then the other people said,
and just like another thing as well is like I always say about this all the time, right? Like, how is the government meant to care about care, children, families, all of that when the majority of them are men who aren't
yeah,
fucking even doing much for their kids at home? Like they have wives at home doing all that jazz. They don't have that perspective. They don't have that maternal, feminine perspective of children and families. That like maternal instinct. They don't have all that connection. Like in my opinion, like women are just so much more understanding about children and families. Like when most of the government is men, main plain and stale is what I call it. They're not gonna understand it. Like
well, you have somewhat of a point there. The person there who is in the Roots account there is very good with kids, and he's studying social care, and he is a lad. But I absolutely get what you're saying with regards to
this
that.
is someone that's like a social care student that's actually gone into this career path because they want to work with children and families. They want to understand the care system. They might have known friends or family that have been in care. The government are businessmen. They're businessmen. They're doing everything in their power to keep their seat, like wait for their turn, stuff like that. They don't have this mindset about caring about children and families. Like they really don't. I'm not saying every single one of them. Like I'm not the biggest fan of Mr. Simon Harris, but he did give funding for more accommodation for care leavers in third level. Like, doesn't mean he gives a fuck, but it's just at least it's something. Like,
No, you're absolutely right there. And look, there's too many comments for me to keep up with at this point. But like, Patricia just saying there should be a 50-50 quota in politics.
I agree.
Like it could be, but see, part of the problem there as well is that on a social level, it's more so on a social level. You have so many women there who would possibly get involved in politics, except they've been socialized directly not to. So I mean, even if you had a 50-50 quota, in a lot of cases, you're not going to get the best candidates because we haven't done the work yet as a society to get women engaged in politics. And with regards to women in politics is more important for women to be engaged with than anyone because, like, who's around the next generation primarily.
And like, but another thing as well is like, if you see even like the current women we have in government, like they get twice as more shit online for being in politics than men. Like they're like talking about their weight, their look. They look they're just like dragging them. Like, fair enough, some of their policies might not be top tier. I'm not saying that. Like if you want to critique someone, you should critique their politics and what they stand for rather than their appearance. And like I know that's done with men too, but it's done way more with the women. Like they get actually like attacked, like for their how they look or their personality or like
Well,
I'd hate that.
that is true, but there's an awful lot of overall issues, and one of the bigger issues, actually, I think, really would, and someone has mentioned it there, Joe Patricia mentioned it there, that an awful driven from a certain economic background, because like people who are of the upper class or the upper middle class, they don't know many people who have this as their lived experience, or they don't know many families around them who have been affected by these situations.
So
And
last year, I want to actually say something. So last year, you can Google it. I actually spoke in the Dáil for International Women's Day last year, and I was speaking about. It was actually really scary, guys. I just want to say, like, I would never do that again. I do not want to get into politics. I was petrified. When I say I was shaking, girl was shook. But
I
like,
I
I
was.
sp- sorry, someone wants to jump in.
Sorry, I spoke in the door as well. I can agree. It is terrifying.
It's actually terrifying, isn't it? And I was
Not
just basically saying how like women from all backgrounds should have the right to be in government, but I was speaking about how there should be more female caregivers in government and caregivers in general in government. People from
I'm
different
actually a
backgrounds.
TT, so I have to actually agree with you. Like, it is scary.
Like yeah, it's petrifying, like literally. And I was just saying like, but the problem is we don't have the family ties to connect us to political spaces. Like we were put into care for a reason. We don't have those connections, but if we were given the opportunity, we'd have such great insight on like mental health, on housing, on addiction, on intergenerational trauma, on poverty, all these things. But like we're just not given the opportunities. This is the thing.
yeah.
Could I just arrange?
hello, sorry.
Go ahead.
Andrea, can I just say you're an absolute breath of fresh air.
Yeah,
You
definitely,
know, you really
definitely.
should think about getting involved more in whatever way because you are so articulate and you put your point across so well. I think you're
Round
absolutely
of applause
fantastic.
for Andrea, please, guys. Round of applause.
No, thank you.
And we talk about women in politics. If we had half the women like you, we'd be a hell of a lot better.
Exactly.
I don't know now if it'd be for me, but I definitely like maybe informing the politics, but not actually the one in the politics. That's what I always
Andrea,
say.
there is a general election in next year, just to let you know.
Yeah, no,
Maybe
but
the presidential election.
Oh yeah.
no, I work with a couple of organisations, but like I'm very careful on which organisations I work with. Like for example, like TUSLA wanted me to. The weirdest opportunity I've gotten was at Bloom last year, the flower festival in Dublin. They wanted me to be at a TUSLA stand and promote fostering. Like they wanted someone that's like in aftercare, that's care experienced, to say, recruit more foster carers, whatever. And I said that I wouldn't do that because they want to recruit more foster carers, but they don't want to tell foster carers the information that they actually need to know. They don't want to recruit foster carers in an informed way. They want to recruit foster carers in a desperate fuck, we have no foster carers type of way. So that's why I refuse that, and I'm very careful not to, because I don't want it to be tokenistic, and that was fucking tokenistic. I wasn't going to do that. But
No,
thank you.
but I mean, like with regards to like, there's a huge amount of we'll say Joe tokenism with regards to we'll say politics in general, because like nobody actually wants to we'll say actually do the work and actually leave people say what they should you know. It's all a case of they all like the photo op, but none of them actually want to actually listen what people's experiences with these organizations or these departments are. That's a huge issue.
Yeah, no, I've definitely seen that happen. Like I remember one time, it was for like a research study about care. We all were there, like do like cause we're on this like panel for like a research study about like care, like the effects of care long term. And literally, Roger O'Gorman came in for one picture after the session was done. He got into a picture with everyone and then just left. Like he just dashed after the picture. It was crazy.
Like I mean, and I mean, what's ridiculous now with that as well is the fact that it was Roger O'Gorman who destroyed an awful lot of the documents related to the problems we currently have. So I'm saying I'm just going to make a couple of lads and moderators because there's some people saying, there's some people being not the nicest of human beings in the comments. So I'm just
You
going.
know, like it just shows a lot about them that they can be so mean. How dare they?
No, I just like to say, this person, Mikey O'Brien, you were saying you're a TD. I'm not familiar with you as a TD. What party are you a TD with?
Hello,
No.
hello.
Hello, Mikey O'Brien. You were saying that you were a TD there earlier in the conversation. I don't recall you as a TD. What party are you a TD with?
Yes, I'm independent.
Oh, independent. And what?
Yes,
And what constituency?
Donegal.
Oh, Donegal. Right.
Yes.
Nice to meet you. Like I'm in Limerick now, so I wouldn't know an awful lot of the TDs further up the country. So
No worries. No worries. I recently got elected through a by-election, so thank you to all of you for your votes if you voted for me. I'm trying to connect with the voters through TikTok for the next election.
And what would be your positions with regards to what should be done about this particular issue about human exploitation and the issues with Islam?
Well, Luke, human exploitation is 100% totally wrong in all aspects.
Mm.
So I'm totally against it, any form of it.
I agree.
I think there is no other way to say it. I'd be giving you a politician's answer if I was to go any further than that. May I ask what the opinion is of the room here?
But just another thing is that I know like you guys like what I have to say, and like I really appreciate you like having me on, and all. Like I've never like been a guest on a life before, so I was like, what the fuck. But I don't really post a lot of like the work that I do on like my personal social media accounts, just because like some people would find what I say very controversial, even though it's like literally not. But you know how social media gets nowadays. But I do post a lot of my work on user on that. I can put my handle in the comments if you. That's my handle there, guys, if you want to follow that.
Just an answer to Ninja Cot said. So I'd place
Hi,
myself on
hi lads. Can I jump in there?
Yes.
Hi April. How you getting on? I think I told you before, April. I invited someone who has had a terrible experience with Tusla,
Yeah.
and yeah, he's a doctor as well.
Mm.
So I'm just waiting for his feedback. If you see an account, I am that I am.
Mm.
That's him. You can
Yeah.
just send him an invite and he'll join the conversation. He has a lot to say about Tusla.
Yeah.
Yep.
Well,
I'm
now
I'm kind.
it would be great to have him. You sent me the video about some of his stuff and what the situation he had with Tusta, with regards to his son was, it was ridiculous.
Yep. Yep.
With regards to his son was, it was ridiculous.
Yep.
With regards to his son was. Oh, we're getting feedback there somehow. Yeah. Oh,
There's a lot of echoes here. Is everything okay?
yeah, no, I'm just trying to sort out a couple of bits with regards to the live.
Do you need a moderator?
No, I have two moderators on.
I
It's
have
just
one
I've an issue here that my restriction wasn't
on.
approved
I
with
have my
regards.
personal assistant currently with me at the moment if you need a moderator.
No, I'm fine. I'll just invite Kian back again. Sorry, no,
Yes.
and yeah. I just had to. There was feedback there through Kian's mic. So yeah, No, that's that sorted. So no, apologies for all that. And yeah, no, I was just looking at that. That's what I was doing. That's why I was quiet there for a minute, because I was looking. I couldn't remember any TD by that name up around Donegal, which would be unusual because, like, we do have a lad in the party from Donegal. I didn't hear anything about a by-election. So I mean, I was kind of giving him enough to chat away with, just to have a look at it and see what the story is. But yeah, no, I realised he wasn't a TD, and it sounded very strange. So I was
The
kind of
biggest the
out about
biggest
it.
D4 accent for Donegal.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, it didn't. It didn't. What you call it? It didn't. It didn't run through. But I had to kind of give him a chance to,
Yeah.
in case I was knocking him off. And it was just how I hadn't heard with all that was going on with the local elections. Do you know?
Well, I'll
There
give him
was
one
no
thing. It was a
by-election.
good fake accent.
Or it was, no, in fairness, yeah.
There was no by-election. I googled it. The only guy I found was some guy who was the mayor of Clonmel in 1933. So
I don't know. Maybe he has a time machine.
the mayor, they're not a TD. So
But Andrea went off. I think she thought I was ignoring her, but I was really trying to deal with that situation. So Andrea, if you're still watching, if you want to come on and say more, you can. I've no issue giving you space to voice things. But would anyone else like to say something?
I've a little experience from a foster care parent perspective, and adoption and a few other areas. But from a foster care parent, the reason I stopped was because I had a child of such high needs, and they were telling me I was screaming for support from, screaming for OT, psychology. I mean, banging off the head off the wall stuff, and all you get is, well, we have to have meetings about meetings about meetings, and maybe in about 12 months or 18 months. And, maybe in this child's future, there'll be a special school in England. And you're looking at, maybe in this child's future, can we not help him now and maybe do something for him now, and maybe we can stop that from happening? And I eventually stopped and I said, you want me to watch this child suffer and you won't give me the tools to help him, so I'm just stepping back. And I think that's the big problem with TUSLA.
Yeah. Like what I mean, like it's TUSLA, it's the Child Mental Health Services, it's all of them. They're all exactly the same about these issues. Because, like, I mean, what no one seems to realise, I mean, even you'd think that even the accountant pencil pushers of government would realise that problems that people suffer from, like issues that they have in their daily lives, would be much easier solved early on when they're starting to have a problem with a situation than they would be, down the line when things get far more serious. So you think even from a financial aspect that they would try and fix these situations, even if they don't have any human empathy or a heart at all.
I said that to them. I said, you're going to pay for this school in England that costs about, $250,000 to $500,000 a year for this one placement. And you won't just throw, some services at them now to stop it from happening. Or you end up with somebody who's not productive in society, and you're supporting them on the dole and you're supporting them with every other way because you're not helping them now. They just don't.
Well, you're looking at it from your decent person perspective. They don't care. Their end goal is to privatize everything.
Yeah.
They could care less what happens to somebody.
no, they couldn't.
And to be honest, if privatising worked and we got value for our money and competent people in there, it wouldn't be the worst thing, because it's not working as a state organisation.
Well, you see,
But unfortunately, our history of what we do with contracts and everything else, that we never get someone who's good. We've no comeback if they're not living up to the service. Do you know that way? So you're just caught either way.
yeah, but like objectively, privatization never works because, look, the thing of it is if you really look at it, but down to brass tacks, if in order for a private company to provide a service at better, that the government will be providing for free, they either have to enormously cut cost or enormously inflate expense. So that's just, the situation of it. And I mean, some of the key issues with TUSLA are actually the fact of using private contractors and, cutting away the budget, because there is a phenomenon where governments they cut away at services and they cut away at funding in order to long-term privatise them. And they've done it with the HSE, and they're doing it with TUSLA, and they're doing it with every other group.
Yep. I suppose the other question then is where does the money come to fix all the? We can see all the areas: mental health, fostering, teenage placements. It doesn't matter what area you look at; they all need billions thrown at them.
And we're in debt.
Yeah. So where do we get it from? That's the whole thing. And we're being promised it's going to change since the industrial schools, since the Magdalen laundries. We've been promised since then it's changing and apologies are given. But it doesn't change. They don't put the money into the services.
No,
and if they do put the money into the services, we do stupid stuff like the most expensive hospital in the world. We're deplorable at it.
A hospital that's more expensive than the world's tallest building.
Yeah. Well, we have the money. What was it last year? They had an overflow of what they expected to make yearly of over 65 billion. Like, they clearly have the money for these things. They just don't spend it.
And is that all coming from taxes?
Well,
I would presume so.
Well, where a lot of it came from was the windfall tax because of the fact that they allowed the energy companies to absolutely price gouge us, which shouldn't have happened in the first place because the ESB should never have been privatised. But, in this particular situation, where does the money come from? If you actually really look at it, like, for example, now that enormous children's hospital, that was done by and it was done by BAM Construction. BAM Construction is they're Dutch owned. Well, they're not Dutch owned. Like their majority shareholder is Deutsche Bank in Germany, whose majority shareholder is BlackRock. And not only and even since that they've made a Hames and Children's Hospital situation, they've been awarded a number of state contracts, including I think it was a bridge in Longford and various other things from around the country. And have been proven to be completely untrustworthy with money. And a subsidiary of theirs is currently building an awful lot of the modular homes, and I'd love to see what that'll end up costing us. Because if you go back a couple of years ago, a log cabinet only cost you about 20 grand. Now they're saying about 100 grand for a modular unit. Part of the issue is why do we keep giving these contracts to private companies that have proven themselves time and time again untrustworthy with money?
Yeah. Can I also add that they're building a bridge in Waterford as well, BAM?
Yeah. And that's absolutely shocking. They should have been run out. They should have never have been awarded another contract, private or public, in this country after what they've done with that children's hospital. But you have it up and down. It's not even down to do with construction. You have that up and down the HSE. You have that up and down. We see the situation with the ideal care services with regards to TUSLA. And we see the situation with all of these kind of groups. And all it comes down to is an ideological opposition to actually doing a decent job and actually investing in state services. And what we end up doing is paying an awful lot more money, putting back the pieces from people's lives being ruined, from the country being ruined, from the economy being ruined. And still, they have this ideological opposition to actually providing things ourselves. And also, there is lobbyists there. So, where does the money come from is very simple. Stop paying people who have robbed us. If someone, if you got a builder, if you got someone in to do a job for you, and they charged you a terrible job and charged you 5 or 6 times above asking, you wouldn't get him in for a second one, would you?
Nope.
That's kind of what it comes down to. And that's outside of all this inflated management. Because, for example, if you look at it there, right, what the money that's spent on the NHS over million. If you were to put that per capita, somehow the NHS got extended out to Ireland, right, it would cost us 13 billion. We are currently paying in advance of 21 billion. So make that make sense.
But what we're lacking across the board, it's the one thing: accountability. There is no accountability, no matter what happens in this country. You can refuse to go in front of the Oireachtas committee. You can just leave the job and just pretend it didn't happen. There's no accountability.
Absolutely none
I
whatsoever.
actually have examples of this non-accountability even from today. I got a letter off the Minister for Mental Health, and she literally just didn't even include one bit of accountability of what I wrote and what the mishaps that they have caused in the mental health department.
And I mean, if you look at it, like, I mean, it's always, they'll always throw some fella who's, I don't know, he has a desk job in some department under the bus every time it comes to something, who may or may not have had anything to do with the situation. And you get dynasties of these people who continue to be elected, who have overseen all of this go on. Like, I mean, we're essentially seeing the same people running the country since the foundation of the state. Like, I mean, like, it doesn't make any sense. And, like, we're kind of getting a small bit off topic, but we're after electing the whole lot of them again in the last election. So, I mean,
There's a different reason for that, though.
Yeah.
And that is because you don't want the anti-immigration in.
Oh, well, obviously, you don't want
Yeah, so what else can you do? Because you don't want them. So therefore, you have to go and vote for what was there, because they're the only other ones there.
Well, I mean, there was also people before Profit, Sinn Féin, and a lot of very decent independents, and I don't mean Independent Ireland, a lot of very decent independents running in local areas. Like, in my own local area, my first preference vote in the local election, I went to Michelle Hayes, who's a solicitor who has been fighting various things going on around the county, including the burning of the tyres and the incinerator for Irish cement. So, like, I mean, that's the situation. And my number two and three then went to Sinn Féin, and my partner, he voted for a Sinn Féin man that we know fairly well, with a different constituency to my constituency, but would be the constituency that my boyfriend is in.
Yeah.
I mean, like,
Now, the independents in my area were all anti-immigration.
yeah.
So I'm not going to vote for any of them.
Well, sure, I suppose, like, I mean, look, it's better Fianna Fáil and Fine Gael than Irish Freedom Party, obviously.
Yeah.
And I mean, it does come down to who ran who. But in in an awful lot of cases, like, there was ample choice. But I think in a lot of cases, people were very confused by the amount, because there was too many people ran this time now, nearly.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And as well as that, poor people tend not to vote. So that's kind of one of the bigger issues, is the fact that the lack of engagement is one thing, but as well as that, there's a major lack of things that we can actually do with regards to on the ground outside of the electoral system. Like, everything is sewn up. Like, I mean, if you go up for a protest, even if it's a peaceful one, it's kind of it's almost a coin toss as to whether or not there'll be trouble at it. So, I mean, like,
Well, you certainly won't get peace at a far right one.
no, you won't. But what I mean is, like, if you even an ordinary protest, like, I mean, you go back to any of the protests, like, you've often had situations such as being antagonised by the Gardaí, or counter protesters showing up for no discernible reason. Like, I mean, I was at a forestry protest once where an anti-trans crowd turned up and decided to try and disrupt the forestry protest for no reason. So, I mean, like, what you're talking about there is, I don't know, things are just gone completely into nonsense, but we're getting completely derailed off of the subject now at this point.
Yeah.
Kaya said, do I have an email or a WhatsApp? I can send you information that I've gathered from Tusla. If you go into my account, we have an open group chat where people can come in and talk to us just as a group, as a group, and that. And if you go in there and just say hi and say this is Kai, Jordan Kavanagh, who's running the Roots account, he'll message you back. That's probably the handiest way. Or if you want to send a direct message, with your number or your email, our email is officialrootspartyofireland@gmail.com if anyone wants to send us emails with information. No, I went off on a bit of a rant about privatisation and the government there. Does anyone want to kind of say anything to bring things back to where what we were talking about?
Yeah, one second there.
Yeah. I suppose I'll catch up on comments because there was an awful lot of comments. There's so many comments going in. I can't keep track. Um, if I go from bottom to top again.
Can you guys hear me?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think Tuzla has to be held accountable of like the amount of damage that they've done to the younger generation. You
Yeah.
know, I think there's a lot of vulnerable children who have been exploited on the Tuzla,
Mm.
and I don't know if you're familiar when kids come to seek asylum underage, they are also handed over to Tuzla. And in regards to the missing kids as well, like there is a huge number of uh, kids who are from the migrant descent
Mm.
who went missing.
Mm.
And when it comes to children, Irish kids who are in Tuzla, I'm not making comparisons, but there's some reality into this. When it comes to a migrant kid who's under Tuzla's care, or compared to an Irish kid who's under Tuzla's care, because obviously the actual parent can come to the defense, you know, if there is some exploitation happening in Tuzla.
Mm.
But when you look at migrant kids, like they don't have someone who can come to their defense, and this makes it even difficult for, you know, Tuzla to be held accountable. So, like I was saying, I'm waiting for that doctor to join. He has an experience that is very, very shocking, and
Mm.
is still trying to find justice.
Yeah.
He has loads of information in what happens within Tuzla, and I think that can be educative.
Yeah.
But yeah, we should be holding these kind of lives, April, consistently, just like we discuss racism,
Yeah.
because I don't think it's a one-time kind of a discussion,
No, it's
you
not.
know.
Like, I mean, what we're talking about here tonight, I mean, there's so many comments and so many people have so much to say. I can't even keep reading the comments. There's just so many of them. I can't keep caught up. Like, when I'm finished reading one, there's more have come in. And, I mean, like, there's so many people affected by this situation from all sorts of backgrounds. Like, I mean, did you know, like, and they're not being heard. They're absolutely not being heard. And like I mean, it's down to, like I said in the video that I said promoting this, no one wants to touch this. Everyone considers it pure poison to them politically to touch this. Well, I mean, if a conversation is worth having, it's worth having, regardless of how difficult it might be, and regardless of how much, you know, we'll say it might expose you, you know, to people kind of harassing you over it or anything. Because, like, this is like, what are we trying to do if we can't stand up for things that are happening to children and things that are happening to vulnerable people, be they Irish people of, you know, we'll say working class or lower class backgrounds, or be they, you know, people who are coming here seeking a better life, or, you know, escaping whatever. You know, I mean, if we can't talk about how we treat them, nobody has any business in involving themselves in politics. There was someone here who said that now Kai was saying if they're found in vans, etc., coming in, they are separated from adults and put in the care of Tusla. And you see, this is a problem because when you separate children from their parents, you know, in a situation like that, now knowing nothing else of the situation, like their parents could be the best parents on God given earth, like the level of vulnerability you open them up to is unbelievable. Let alone the fact that they've no concept of the culture and in most cases no concept of the language. Now, let's see who else we have here. Yeah, you could, you know, what you call it, Simple D talk. You know, like I mean, you do an awful lot of work, you know, on here with regards to the African community, and I mean,
Yeah,
God, that
I,
there's
I posted I posted an article that was posted by Irish Independent I think 4 or 5 months ago, and it was talking about how Tusla did contract did provide a subcontract to a company that did not actually have the relevant, or I can say um, technical skills to actually handle kids from different backgrounds.
yeah.
And it's on my
That's
page.
an
I posted
overall
it five
problem.
months ago. Yeah. So
I think
Yeah, I see. There's a
again,
lot of different groups that are doing that now, which is absolutely disgraceful. They're hiring out like private organizations that don't have the staff training or just any knowledge of the area, and they'll basically get them working in that area for however long the contract is.
yeah. And I mean, at this
And as far as I'm sorry to interrupt. As far as I'm aware, that's where a lot of these kind of cases end up coming from.
it is. And according to what I know, I can find outside of ideal care services who are paid an absolute fraction and are the main ones. Like there is 27 in total, private subcontractors that I can't find out who's who in, which is shocking of its own. Like I might end up having to put in a freedom of information request on that one.
Yeah, but see, that's another issue. Most of this is very, very, very quiet. Like none of this is ever publicized that they do these things.
Yeah,
They don't even talk about the fact they do these things,
yeah.
which at least in my mind just proves that they know they shouldn't be doing it.
Absolutely. I mean, they know they shouldn't. Like, I mean, they're not. Look, I've said it, Joe. Lots of people like to make the government excuses for the government as if that they were, stupid or whatever. But the fact of the matter is that they're some of the most highly educated people in the country. They are willfully
Hmm.
doing this kind of thing. That's the main problem.
Again, they don't care about groups like Tesla. Like they
No,
don't make the money, so they don't care.
no. But just here in the comments, Kai is saying something. A seventh male who is a minor has been taken to state care by Tusla. Joe, and that was after saying 6 Eritrean men deported after being found in a trailer in Rosslare. Like, I mean, people can talk an awful lot about immigration and things, but why did 6 men from Eritrea decide to come in the back of a lorry? Except for the fact that, like, we know things are terrible in Eritrea. But I mean, like, nobody wants to look at that aspect of it. And I mean, with regards to people being trafficked, like, as a and just saying like about simply he does a lot of anti-racism work with regards to the black community here on TikTok, and like so what was it again in my statistics there? I think was it 46%. 46% of the people who are trafficked into Ireland come from Africa, primarily Nigeria. And like I mean, out of all places, like Africa, like Nigeria is a good distance away from us, like. So the fact that we have that many of them being trafficked into this country really tells you, the depth and scope of human trafficking in the country. And I mean, we've talked an awful lot about, the children's situation in it. But what's no less of a problem is the labour exploitation end of it. As I said, and as I found out in kind of looking through things, we do not have a standalone offence of slavery. I mean, I can't think of any, modern country at this point that doesn't have slavery as a standalone offence. You have people there in, grow houses for certain things, which I won't mention because I don't need to get any further restricted than what I already am. And what you call it, and you've people there like a huge thing of it is, we'll say the fruit picking industry, and nobody likes to talk about that. Like, I mean, there was an article there about the conditions that some people were working in for killings. Now, I'm not good accusing killings of human trafficking, because I can't find any evidence related to killings with regards to human trafficking, but with regards to exploitation. There was it was the Balkan something. I'll do a thing on that separately, but about the Irish dream turning into a nightmare, and I mean you have that in the like a good portion of people who have been labour trafficked have been trafficked into what you call it have been trafficked into fruit picking and otherwise arable agriculture. And you have the other issue then of hospitality, because hospitality is the majority of cases of people being trafficked for labour exploitation. But where are people who are migrants to this country being housed? They're being housed in the hospitality sector. So essentially, people come into this country, and we are pushing them in directly into the hands, and the state paying for it, of people who are directly exploiting them in a lot of cases. Now, I'm not saying everyone in the hospitality industry is involved in it, but there's a lot. And I mean, when we get into the hospitality industry has made a huge amount of money from this immigration crisis. The hospitality industry has made a huge amount of money from, all of what's going on at the moment. And they were absolutely cradled in the hand during COVID when everything else was shut down. So, I mean, we really need to start looking at the hospitality industry. And seemingly, one of the major investors with regards to hotels in this country is also one of the major investors of buying up land in this country. I'm not going to mention his name. It's a matter of public record. You can find it. But it's a certain American land baron, and I don't mean Bill Gates. So, when as a country are we going to decide to prioritize people over profit? And let alone prioritizing people over profit. We're prioritizing human beings, both Irish people and people who are coming to us for protection. We're prioritizing them over the profits of foreign investors from the colonial power countries. So where is it going to end? I mean, the only way that I can see forward is that we need to have spot checks. We need to have authorities and spot checking companies in industries for labour exploitation. And that's not even
Yeah,
going into the fact I'm not.
April,
Yeah.
just to add on, in relation to Keeling, I had a case last year of a migrant lady who was working in Keeling, and she was exploited, and she was discriminated in her workplace. She was bullied out of work, and she did not know where to start from because that was her first job. And she was a migrant lady who had, I think, 4 kids, but the kids were not here. The kids were back in Africa. And the managers were Polish. We sent them emails in relation to how they mistreated her. And we found out that they were, because she spoke out, they bullied her out of work by the HR team sending her that she signed a contract, and they decided to terminate the whole contract. And they started playing with her roster, whereby they were sending her. She used to work full time. They were sending her part time, and she would plead with them to kind of add hours, even though Keeling, they're always busy. It's a big facility, and she eventually gave up. We emailed them, and the response was that she was misconduct and stuff like that. They gave us an excuse that was related to violations of the work contract. But the reality was the migrant was not, first of all, the lady was vulnerable because she was not well spoken, and most of the people who work in Keeling also are not well spoken when it comes to English. There's language barrier there. So it says a lot about when it comes to human exploitation and labor exploitation with these companies that are hiring on hard labor sectors. So at the end of it, I managed to find her a new job. I helped her do a new CV and everything, and connected her to a different warehouse where she was comfortable. And those kind of people are vulnerable. And by the use of power, it was a Polish manager. She misused her power. She was sending messages on WhatsApp saying, we'll see who stays and stuff like that, intimidating. So these kind of companies are not held accountable, and I think I think what they're doing, they're creating like, a form of oppression, and they're discouraging, hardworking people to be out of work as well.
And
Sorry. I think the doctor is here. You can invite him to come up.
what's his name?
Yeah. I am that I am.
Oh, I am that I am. Yes,
Yeah.
yes. Now I remember now. Um, for some reason now I don't seem to have. Can add him. Hold on now. Hold on. I'll follow him back and see. Plus guess. Yeah. Aha. I have him. Now I have an invitation sent to him. So we'll see now if we can get him on. See now that he requests now his viewer. Well, I sent a request anyway. I think did you get that? I am that I am. But with regards to the situation, like I mean, I know very well the labour exploitation that goes on. It is endemic in the meat factories in the country. And I mean, my former partner was he worked in the meat factories. He came to Ireland before his country had joined the EU. He came in 2000. He was from the Czech Republic. And like things weren't too bad for him, but there were some others that came from other places. Through like he came through an agency, and the agency that he came through weren't too bad, but some of the other ones that came through agencies were terrible. Now I can't overall talk about his experience because some of his worst experiences were in a factory where he had signed a non-disclosure agreement. But and I don't want to get him into a huge amount of trouble there. But like I mean, overall, what we need is we need to have spot checks with regards to working conditions, and we need to have. I honest to God think that
Yeah.
unionization needs to be mandatory at this point in the country because there is no way in hell.
Can I speak, please?
Oh yeah, sorry, apologies.
Yeah.
Yeah, walk away.
Yeah. Well, I haven't heard, or I didn't hear what you guys were discussing a lot. But I just want to say a few words about my own child, who is 14, autistic child. I think I've sent my recent videos or interviews I did in New York, in the United States, 2 weeks ago, about how the Irish-born children were used for different purposes. Now, on my child, he's an autistic child, nonverbal, so he was used for medical experiment. Number one, he was sexually abused. Number two, he was physically not beaten up, but tortured. So if you watch the video of my interview, you would understand everything what I said on that video. And I have all the evidence, the videos, the documents I received, 234 pages from HAC, TUSLA, whatsoever. And this is what exactly I said. I quote myself. TUSLA, I want you to listen to me and listen very carefully. I said TUSLA is a state-sponsored terrorist institute against Irish-born children. Period. That's what I said. And the Irish government have blood in their hands. Every system, political, structural system in Ireland, starting from the executive, which is the Taoiseach, the Minister of Foreign Affairs, all the government, beyond the legislators, which is the court system, and then below the police department, and below the social workers. If the social workers messed up, the police or the so-called Garda Síochána will protect the social workers. If the police department is messed up, the court system, the Irish legal system, protect the police officers. If the judges or the court system messed up, the executive, the government, the Taoiseach, Micheál Martin, Simon Harris, and Eamon Ryan will protect the court or the legislators. So the entire system work together to destroy Irish-born children. The evilness that this is happening in Ireland never been seen in the Western world. So every person in the government that took part to destroy Irish-born children will be held accountable. And I am the only and first African Irish who came up front to challenge the way how the Irish legal system works, and I'm not scared of anything and anybody. Thank you very much. I don't have time. Have a good discussion.
All right, and thank you very much for saying it. I would have liked if you had more time to explain what had happened your son, just for the purpose of the live, but that's fine. If you don't want to be repeating yourself, I would like if you had any documents that you have. That if you don't mind, if you could please, I would very much enjoy like to have a look at them, for the purpose of looking through this particular problem within the country. So
Well, the documents is a report that was leaked, by HAC. So that's very sensitive. Not you, even the government solicitors and any government representatives don't have those documents. Those documents is a personal documents about my child. But I strongly advise or suggest to watch my interview that I had in New York, and you will see everything what I said there. That will be a very good point for all people who are a victim of Irish government brutality. This is crimes against humanity. This is genocide. But how many of you in this country know that if you transfer your child, if the government transferred your child from one place to another, for instance, if the government take your children from you and put it to somewhere else by force or forcibly, it amounts to genocide. It is clearly spelled out on the 1948 Genocide Convention. I've said it on my interview. For those of you who are not familiar with international criminal law, I have said it that you can double check it yourself and then you can take it from there. So I want the Irish people, regardless of the color of your skin, whether you're black, white, green, yellow in this country, you need to stand up together, fight for your children, fight for Ireland, and fight for the Irish people. Thank you so much. I gotta go.
Okay, good night, and thank you for saying your piece. But no, that's shocking what's going on in the country. And like, I mean, look, you've terrible stories up and down the country with regards to how children have been treated. And like, I mean, obviously, in most scenarios, people are limited in what they can say, particularly in a forum such as this. And like, I mean, the thing about it is unless what's happening, people, and like is being brought to attention by the media, there's kind of very little that we can do, because you see, the thing about it is that like, the fact that the Irish media won't cover an awful lot of it is an enormous problem. And like, I mean, the fact of what's happening, up and down the country, like, I mean, you've a huge issue with people who they only read about sport, and it does indeed happen a lot to.
I'm upset. I can't concentrate. Remember that night, Harry?
What?
That Saturday night that I was working. You know that the girls.
No, sorry, he was having a chat on the phone, and I hadn't realised that I hadn't dropped him. But there's someone else I think wants to come on here now. Rachel, if you might state in the comments what you want to come on for. Just one second out to see who Rachel is here, if she has said anything along the lines of the situation. Rachel, you might state what you want to come on for, because I just don't want anyone giving hassle to anyone who has been on the live or is on the live. But with regards to situations such as what that man has faced, like, I mean, I know what he's saying might sound extremely inflammatory, and like, we'll say it's but people have to understand that people are extremely upset about the treatment of their children within some of these institutions and within the care of the state. And like this, I mean, there's people there who have had children. Like, you've multiple different situations. You have people who have had children taken off of them for no particular reason, or, well, there might be some mild reason. They might have, the child might be struggling in some way with regards to educationally, or with regards to, for example, issues like autism, or in my personal case, I have ADHD, and an awful lot of children who have ADHD often get targeted heavily by, will say, the government, will say, for misbehaving in school. And that's a very that's a very pervasive thing that happens within this country. And as well as that, oh yeah, but as well as that, like, you have people who have intellectual disabilities, and you've lots of issues like that. And I mean, it amounts to not just, complete, overstepping of the powers of the state, but it also amounts to, absolute ableism, because you have issues where you have, parents who are intellectually disabled, who end up getting, their children taken off them, even though that they're not doing anything wrong, and they're doing their absolute best. And in some cases, they're doing an awful lot better than a lot of parents with their kids. You have people who are having their kids taken off of them for being disruptive in school, and you have a lot of situations like that. But then on the flip side of that, you have an awful lot of people who are getting severely abused, that are not, that they're falling completely through the net. And an awful lot of it comes down to, there's not, like, there is a lack of training in some issues, particularly child mental health. There is an awful lot of lack of there is an awful lot of lack of services in, general. And someone is there saying the courts have to establish abuse or neglect. They actually don't. Not to initially take them off of someone. And they can tie you up for years in the legal system, because I actually know someone that this happened to. And, I myself, like, I have had, interviews with social workers and that kind of thing, just for not behaving in school, over having ADHD. And, yeah, and there's someone there saying one girl in her town had 4 kids taken from her because she was she was mildly intellectually disabled and legally blind. Like, I don't really mind what the Child Care Act of 1991 says, because if they do perceive there being a risk, they will take them at least temporarily. And that temporary, placement of them out of the home can last for as long as they can draw out the situation in court. So what we really need is, and I mean, there's 2 sides to it, because then at the same time, you have you have an awful lot of people who are, abused by their families, and they're left in those situations, and they won't do, they won't do anything about it. And it very much depends on the person who is reporting on the case. And sorry, MJ Backup is saying, is there profit from being a foster parent? Is it a profit? It can actually be. Now, I'll be honest with you. If a person is being a foster parent correctly, there isn't any profit. But with regards to, if you decide that you're going to somewhat neglect parents, if you as a parent are going to somewhat neglect the children, it is profit making. And there's someone else there, Elaine, saying, well said, April, I recommend that teachers go and learn about special needs. Look, it is a serious issue, because there isn't, like, with regards to professionals who deal with children who have intellectual disabilities, or have ADHD, or have autism, like, there is very little training for children who have these kinds of issues. And even less, and because, like, for example, there's a strong there's a very strong genetic component to both autism and ADHD. In a lot of cases, the parents are also struggling with autism and ADHD, and there is very little account for issues like that. And there's an awful lot of people and an awful lot of families suffering, from the fact of them, from the fact of people not being supported. Because overall, largely, if we can support someone, either in the case of someone who has a mental health or intellectual disability issue, we should, from supporting them through that, to also there's parents there who would be a fine parent if they didn't have addiction issues. Like, and this becomes multi-generational, because someone who has been through that, and later often becomes either becomes addicted or has mental health issues themselves. So, like, if you can help a family now today, you are stopping these problems from continuing on for generations and generations and generations and generations, because it all rolls downhill. And as Mary Jane says there in the comments, it takes a village to raise a child. It absolutely does, because we need to have closer communities, and we need to have we need to have people within communities, you know who who are there to see things. For example, like, as people have made the examples of the teachers and that kind of thing within communities, that they need to be able to train. They need to be trained to spot someone who's struggling from, we'll say, an intellectual disability or autism or what have you, and there needs to be somewhere to refer them to, because as we've seen here, this is a huge, we'll say, issue of privatization, lack of funding and services, and it continues on and continues on and continues on. Whereas, once I know someone's requesting, I think, El Savage, if you want to say something there, please state what you want to say. I'm not letting on anyone unless they actually state what they want to talk about. And it was a horribly undermining of the people with care experience who have contributed. I don't see how pointing out the issues with state services is undermining the people with care experience who have contributed. And there is absolutely no misinformation whatsoever going on in this country, because it has been point blank the overall goal of both Fine Gael and Fianna Fáil in this country to privatise every possible service within this country. And there are many people who work in care who have issues with the level of privatisation within this country. There's a threshold for... Listen, you can keep going on about the threshold for children to be brought into care. That's for permanent placement. If they decide that they are going to take a child off of someone, they can draw out the court process for as long as they feel like. They can be brought in under anyone's whim as a protective measure until such time as it goes to court. And that's fair enough. That is often very, very much needed. But the fact that...
Hold on.
Right?
Instead of just constantly rebuttaling everything we're saying, how would you actually just, explain your point, if you have a point at all? Because it just seems like you're ripping the piss at this point.
Yeah.
Legislation is clear. Legislation is clear on what? Again, just broad, random statements. Explain anything that you're saying.
Yeah, there's no explanation to any of it.
No, there isn't.
Yeah.
He's just saying the Care Act of 1991, but sure, does he have any mind on the procedures as to care on the person to be brought into care? Yeah, but if they're taking children in protectively, they're awaiting the trial to permanently place them in care. They're still going to be in care. They're either going to be placed in a temporary foster home or temporarily into an institution, one or the other.
There's no point arguing. Everything we say is there, he's going to disagree with.
Yeah.
No point.
Just ignore him.
Yep. All right.
No, what was I going to say in chat? What was I going to say in chat? Jordan, would you like to say a bit about what you've learned about the legislation with regards to we'll say social care in general within the country, as someone who studied it?
Well, depressingly enough, and as much as I hate to say it, it is true, most of the legislation that's only been passed in the last few years is effectively as new as we've ever seen. Like, we've been working off stuff from the 1800s up until recently. That is in no way a joke. Like, the act that he was describing a minute ago, that was actually put in place over one that was there from the 1800s. That's why there's so many flaws with all of this stuff like the threshold of care and stuff. And yeah, they say there's a threshold of care, but like we all know someone, or we all know stories where it's just clearly not true. Like, yes, legally there's this threshold of care, but there's no one to answer to if they still bring them in, and that's kind of the issue here.
Yeah. The issue is and always has been that the buck stops with no one and everything is privatised.
Exactly.
And that's the most problem.
There's no one to blame at the end of the day.
Yeah. Like you know, like I mean, constantly like we see it, and it doesn't matter in what sector of government. There is nobody ever brought to account for anything that goes wrong. I mean, Roderick O'Gorman should be in jail for certain documents related to this issue. He should be in jail right this instant, awaiting trial. This is the but I mean, it's always a case of one law for everyone else, and one law for people who are a status above everyone else, regardless of whether they're in politics or business or what have you. Now, would anyone else like to say something? Because I've been rambling for quite a while here.
There needs to be proper investigations done into every single branch of these problems. There won't be with the current government. There needs to be new training. Massive update on the training. They're doing constant small training every time something goes wrong. Usually it's something very, very, very obvious that'll go wrong. Another thing, actually, I don't know if Kai is still here or not, but they do have this thing where effectively, if a child's put into a residential care system, and for one reason or another, they're too much of a problem to keep in one area, they will be thrown into another, but the issue with that is they mightn't even have a social care worker at all. I cannot remember the exact title of those places they are thrown, but they're not a normal residential. But a lot of the abuse and a lot of the things that happen end up being going on in those ones.
Can I ask a question?
And again, yeah, of course, go ahead.
So Angie said in the comments, however, with judges like Nolan, how are supposed to everything's ever supposed to change? I don't know a lot about Judge Nolan, so can someone explain to me what has Judge Nolan done that has angered so many people?
He keeps letting off people who interfere with children and people who do terrible things to women off with jail time.
He lets people off with literally hundreds and thousands of images, and some of them where they have actually participated in getting the images, as in not just shared them, but participated in getting them, and he still lets them off.
Okay.
There was also with him, there was a case last year that he let off with just a slap on the wrist. I think it was like a 6-month sentence or less for 2 lads who kidnapped and, well, I can't say exactly what they did to her, like a teenage girl, and did all sorts of horrific things. Again, I can't say here because you get the live taken out, but effectively said boys will be boys and made them apologise.
That's unbelievable.
As far as I'm aware, she actually needed some form of grafting and plastic surgery because there was also boiling water involved.
Oh, we're back to accountability. That's it.
Yeah.
No matter what
They were let off. As far as I'm aware, they're just now out, walking around.
Right.
And Patricia in the comments is saying a judge that was charged with SA recently was still judging. So this this is what we have as a country. Oh, and was also still able to be a judge until January while the case was pending. Thank you for that information, Patricia, because that's insane.
Would you be able to like DM one of us the name of that judge? Wouldn't expect you to say it like publicly.
Yeah, Patricia, you might send that there to me because we're friends here on TikTok. Oh,
Where's the vetting? Who would vet them?
Jared
That's the problem.
Jared O'Brien told us judge. Yes, I remember the case actually. Yeah, now that you mention his name, he was prosecuted. Yeah. So I mean, like this is the situation. Like I mean, you take that, and then you take someone who does something daft, like I don't know, we call it buries an old car or something, and they could get a couple of years in jail. Do you know what I mean? Like there's not, you know, and I mean, okay, that's right. We'll say under environmental stuff, that's a pretty bad thing. There's lots of different things, like we'll say under that kind of stuff, you know, I know those different things. But I mean, it pales in comparison to what some people are being left off with suspended sentences. I mean, look, at this point now, I think we actually do need the ability to elect our judiciary. To be honest with you, I mean, to directly elect
We
them,
do.
you know, like our county councillors. For example, you have the whatever district court in, I don't know, Clonmel or Limerick or whatever, and essentially the people of Limerick or the people of Clonmel get to elect their judges.
Well,
Like,
considering the fact they're effectively unfireable, yeah, it's ridiculous. They can effectively do whatever they want and get away with it.
yeah,
Hence why you see people like Nolan,
yeah.
as they have nobody to answer to.
Yeah, they've nobody to answer to. And I mean, like, if we actually did elect our judges, like, I mean, they would be answering directly to their community. Because if they were either constantly putting harsh sentences on people who had done very little, or if they were constantly letting people who were, you know, doing terrible things to people in the community that would like sentences either direction, they wouldn't be elected again by their community.
Exactly.
And Tommy 2 times here says, I think they need to be held accountable. Voting them is not the best idea. Well, I mean, like, what other way have we to hold them accountable? Like, I mean, either that or we have
Who's
another.
going to hold them to account, though?
Because if we either that or we have,
They're
you know,
effectively one of the highest legal powers in the land.
yeah,
Like, who are they going to be held accountable by?
yeah,
Like, they're friends, effectively.
yeah. It's either that now, or it's, you know, it's a case of we essentially have a situation like the U.S. Supreme Court, where the government can completely overturn our laws by just appointing people that suit them into, do you know, like what happened over in America. So if we could directly elect them, you know, I don't know, people seem very resistant to giving people the situation, you know, with giving people the choice to elect, you know, their people who represent them. Like, I mean, people act like the population are stupid, but they're not.
I don't know though about election judges. I really don't.
I don't
You're
either.
going
Sorry,
to
I
have a
I
huge
seen an
community that's
interesting
going to
comment.
elect in who's going to be very easy on a lot of things. Oh, we'll put him in. Yeah, he's great for that. No, absolutely not. That's the only thing I disagree with you on all night, I have to say.
Someone said there's no accountability even for government officials. Well, to be fair, again, who are they going to be held accountable to? At that level of the justice system, it is also a branch of government
Yeah.
who and they're friends with them. Like we seen during COVID and stuff, they were out together playing golf. Like they're not supposed to be friends. That is actually kind of part of this, but they are. Who are they going to be held accountable by?
Well, you see, like, it's a case of we're back again to who watches the watchers, you know.
Yeah, Europe holds them accountable.
I'm not aware the European courts holding our judiciary directly accountable.
Yeah,
Not on Irish legislation anyway, probably on the implementation and writing into law of EU legislation. No,
I
I
haven't
could,
exactly seen it, to be honest.
no, I haven't either. I feel like I could stand completely corrected. That's also possible, you know, but like I'm not aware of it. This is kind of the European courts, perhaps. Yeah, no, I'm kind of thinking about it now. I do remember a couple of cases that went to the European courts, but they were mostly civil cases with regards to, you know, for example, who had the rights to such and such in a business sense. So I'm not really sure, but you could be very well right. I'm not sure on that, though, so I'm not going to say much of that. And as soon as our judiciary and legislature are fused, there's no separation of power. Well, I mean, like, look, to be honest with you, it's a very hard situation to know what to do with, like, and I mean, look, I'm not a solicitor, so it's probably a small bit above my pay grade as such without getting separate legal advice as to what we can and can't do. with regards to separating our judiciary and the government a bit. But we definitely have to think of some way of having an independent and accountable judiciary. With regards to what to do there now, I'm not 100% sure.
Wait, what's the story with this? What is it? Spirit of.
Ireland guy wants to join. I've already asked him to state what he wants to join for.
Yeah, no, anyone who's coming on now tonight, because I don't want a big load of arguments, because it's a very sensitive
No,
issue.
and the name. I find that anyone that has Ireland in their name these days is just looking for an argument.
Depressingly so, yeah.
Not always, but some of them are
No.
alright. Look, I've had debates with Spirit of Freedom before, but like anyone that's coming on tonight, put down what you want to come on about, because like it's a very sensitive issue, and I don't want people getting upset, because people can easily I don't have control over what other people say, and I don't want people feeling upset or victimized. Tommy Two Times said Red Desmond was writing a new idea for Ireland. Well, we've our own new ideas for Ireland, and some of it would be kind of, with regards to actually governing the country, some of it would be kind of similar to Aranua, as in, having more regional devolution of power. But, like, that's not what tonight's discussion is about. And see now if Derek wants to come on. You're very good with Derek. But, what you call it,
Internet popularity. If you're talking election voting.
But, does anyone want to say anything on the current situation? I just want to say Countess in there saying our Attorney General is Leo's best friend apparently. No, absolutely believable, but I am not going to comment on that, because it's not something that I can, that I can verify. Roisin is asking a form of archaic syndicalism. I wouldn't even it's just straight syndicalism is what we're for. So anyway, yeah. So does anyone want to say anything about what you call it, the situation with regards to the trafficking and exploitation of people, or will I start off in a solar run about workers' rights?
Not really much to say other than what's been said.
Yeah.
I suppose the obvious point to be making is it needs to be heavily investigated, but that's not the question. The question is who's meant to investigate it.
It needs to be someone who's not associated with any political parties or any associated with any government people or friends that they have inside it. Someone who's completely independent, has no bias to anyone, and can understand the situation at hand.
Exactly. We well know at this point it cannot be the Guards or any affiliated group with the Guards, because they clearly do not care or are being told what to say about it. One of the two.
Well, I don't know, are we at a stage now where we need an investigator from one European country just to, to cover all bases at this point, and we've had a couple of the African countries as well. But, it's hard to know who to get investigated, but absolutely, we do need some kind of an independent investigation, and it needs to be transparent to some degree. I mean, obviously, there is, we'll say, operational security with regard to serious investigations, like we want to be able to catch people out and knowing they're following them, kind of thing. But with regards to things like, I mean, we had the big investigation into the the whole situation with the laundries and that kind of thing. So nothing came of it. No one got arrested, and they sealed the records of it in the end. So exactly how to manage it is an investigation.
It's effectively the state investigating the state and hoping they'll be honest.
Yeah.
When they've historically never been honest.
Yeah. I mean, like, you know, like at this stage now, it's like
Regardless of who you get to investigate, you have to hope that they're just going to be honest. Like, it'd be very easy to go out and say you want like an independent European investigation into it or something, but then again, you're hoping they'll also be honest. You have no way of knowing if they will.
yeah. And Elaine in the comments is saying, why don't we go to the president who actually appoints these judges? Now, and that is a fair point. And Roderick lied about what would happen after a yes success. If that isn't eye-opening, nothing is. But I mean, to be fair, like, we heavily opposed the care referendum. And early on, we got a lot of flack out of it, but an awful lot of other left groups gradually saw the light on that. But, like, I mean, look, you've an issue, like, the government have their boot down on everyone at the moment, even down to, and I mean, they're just constantly putting more and more layers of power into themselves. Like, I mean, you know, like I don't think I've been on a live yet where I haven't given out about the Industrial Relations Act, but that's one example. I don't know how I always managed to bring things back to the Industrial Relations Act, but anyway. Judge's appointment is outlined in the Constitution, so it's hard to contest.
It actually that would need a It would need a referendum to actually have a chance of changing that.
Yeah.
I just want to say good night. Thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
Good night, Beverly, and it was very nice talking to you. And you made an
You
awful
too.
very, very good points, and I'd love to chat to you again.
Absolutely. Thanks a million. Night.
So, lads, does anyone want to make any kind of set of closing comments on the situation, or will I kind of
Yeah. Sorry. Today I was caught off. I'm actually outside. That's why I couldn't, participate in the conversation. But yeah, in the past 12 months, like I have come across, like just by doing the anti-racism lives, like black Irish kids who have been under the TUSLA care, and they've um they've how they were neglected has had an impact even to them. You could realize by how they express themselves and everything. So yeah, I think when it comes to a point that Roots mentioned earlier on, when it comes to like holding even accountability, like when you look at the history of the state, when it comes to like investigations that were done in the last 3 decades, and the amount of injustices, people who are still waiting for justice up to date, it's just a lose-lose kind of a situation. And at the same time, there's agencies who are making a fortune out of this exploitation and this chaos and lack of accountability that is happening. And yeah, I think it's the high time, April, if you can, I would encourage you to be doing lives. You can be having people coming up randomly and explain their stories. And I can't recall each and every situation, but I do know one or two stories that I could describe them as horrific, because you could see the impact that it has on kids, especially when they mature, and they self reflect what they went through under Tusla's care. So there's a lot to be discussed on that. And yeah, guess I'll jump off. Next time, I guess I'll be in a more friendly space, so that I can contribute to the conversation as we move on. And thank you for holding this kind of lives.
And thank you for coming on and saying your bit. No. Keegan, do you want to say anything there before we go off?
No, I think we've covered everything.
Yeah. Jordan?
No, I'm in the same boat here.
Right. Well, I'll say good night to you, and we must do a bit more investigation, see how we can actually were about holding people to account for this situation, and a fair few people have sent me various information, either on WhatsApp or through Teams. So, what you call it, and I kind of sent all of her research. So basically, you will be hearing more from us on this subject, and we need to figure out a way of holding the government and holding the various bodies involved and the judiciary to account, because like one child in this situation is too many. And no matter whoever you believe in, bless, or if you don't, mind yourselves. Good night.
All right.